everyone. Welcome to this session on digital marketing for B2B. I believe most of you are from India, so very good afternoon. Some of you who might be in different zones, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to you. We have had, I think, over 500 people who have signed up for this session, over 550 people, which really speaks about the interest in this very specific topic, right? It is not general digital marketing. So digital marketing for B2B, having 550 people register, and we already have, I think every second I'm talking, there is a number increasing. Yeah, so over 75 people are already live. So we'll wait for a few seconds as others join in. But it's really heartening to have all of you. And of course, we have the panelists, which couldn't have been better than this for a session like this. So I'm equally excited, looking forward to learning as all of you attendees are. So we'll wait for a few seconds as others are joining in. I just want to, while others are signing up, I just want to share with you a few things which would help us get more value out of this session. We will begin with a quick introduction. I will set up the context, and then I will ask questions, a few selective questions from the panelists. And towards the end, which hopefully should answer many of the questions you would have about this interesting topic. So I'm sure still there will be questions you would want to directly ask to the panelist, which we will take up towards the later part. So around 3:40 to 4 o'clock, we will have audience questions. How you can ask questions is you have this questions panel window and you can type in your questions. So any point in time you have a question, while you will be on mute, you can type in. If required, I will ask the question on your behalf in between the session, but for sure, I will try to pick as many questions as we get into a dedicated audience Q&A, right? Yeah, we are touching 100 number, so 97, 98, almost, yeah, 100. We've crossed 100 people. That's heartening for a topic like this, and I'm sure we'll have many more people. It's every second it's increasing. So guys, while others are joining in, can you, and to have this session more interactive and engaging for you, and for you to become comfortable in asking your questions, can you all use the questions panel to just type in the location and the organization you have logged in from? I think that will be very interesting. While I will do a poll shortly to get a sense of the audience we have, can you all share the location and the organization you represent? I will just read some of them. That would be interesting while others are joining in. So we have Harj Shah from Mumbai, Kunal, I'm learning digital marketing and I'm entrepreneurs. Great. Then we have Divyang from Surat, Saurabh from Pune. Art is a freelancer. Saurabh is from Pune as well. Billionets Digital. Okay. Then Ishika is from Pune as well. Can you share your organization if you can? If you represent an organization, Mrityunjay is from Kolkata. Saurabh Chopra is from Gurgaon, Publicis. Then Aditya is from Delhi. Sarabjit from Vancouver. Oh, great. That's joiner business. Yamini is from Delhi. Ankit is from Ahmedabad. Pacific Global Solutions. Aman is from Delhi. Penguin Marketing. Sandeep is from Bestdoc. Fayaz is from Chennai. Sonali is from Bangalore. Saib is from Gurgaon. MG India. Then we have Apur as a freelancer. Great. So I think there is no place, I'm sure, in India we would not have people from. There are so many comments now, I can't even read. We have over 120 people. Just a few more seconds. I think then we will officially begin. I hope all of you can hear me. I have not seen any comment which talks about any technical issue. I think definitely during the COVID, all of us have become far more comfortable and used to taking online session, which helps my job relatively, which otherwise would have been relatively difficult. Perfect. So just a second. We'll also be recording this session. Just a second. I'm just trying to figure out. Or that was my screen. Okay. Oh, it's already recording. Great. So we'll cut down the initial part. Perfect. So I hope all of you can see my screen as well, right? Can you all confirm that? Okay, now it should be visible. All right. So thank you once again, everyone. Really welcoming you to this very, very exciting session. Thank you for taking time out on this Friday afternoon for most of you. It's a working day. And given the number of people who registered and the number of people who have already joined in, that really speaks about the interest in this already specialized topic. And as much excited and interested you would be, I am equally excited to learn from this panel. This is an area, honestly, while I've been in digital marketing for a long time, this is one area which is also an area where I want to learn so much. So with that interest, I really welcome all of you. Quickly to introduce, I am Pradeep. I'm one of the co-founders at Digital Vidya. We started Digital Vidya over 12 years ago with the objective of helping build digital marketing talent, help organizations build that skill and grow. And I'm very happy about the little contribution we would have made in these last 12 years. And prior to that, I've been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years, and accidentally 20 years ago, digital marketing happened for us in our first venture. And that venture is still doing pretty good and surviving largely on digital marketing. But that's still primarily into B2C technology area, and B2B is a very interest area for us in that segment as well. And Digital Vidya we started 12 years ago, and I've been part of it. So 20 years, I think digital marketing is very common to what all I've been doing, largely digital marketing and education. Now, that's a brief about me. The panelist we have is, I think, probably the dream panelist for this kind of session, given all of them have over 2 decades of experience and coming largely from technology background. Vamsi has experience in B2C as well, which is even great. But I think overall, if I'm sure all of you would have gone through their background, but quickly to introduce them, Vamsi Vinjamuri, he is head of marketing, digital operations and platforms at Wipro. He has been into Wipro for a long time, multiple stints, and before that, he has worked in HCL. He has worked in B2C space as well, like Quick Info. He was part of. I got to know. He's worked in Ogilvy as well. So he has media and marketing experience from an agency services company background as well. So thank you and really welcoming you, Vamsi, for this session. Thank you for taking time out. Thanks a ton.
My pleasure.
Then, yeah, thank you. Then we have Srihari Palangala. Srihari is the Senior Director and Head of Marketing at Dell. And he's been in Dell for a long time. Prior to that, he has worked in Adobe, he has worked in HCL. I think over 20 years of experience in technology companies. And like Vamsi, Srihari has lot of awards on his name. And interestingly, I today got to know that he has written a book, Strike Your Balance. And I was checking on Amazon. It has almost all 5-star reviews. I would love to know more about that book. That's interesting part I got to know today while I was looking at everything he has been doing. Thanks, Srihari. Thank you so much for taking time to be part of this session.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Perfect. Great. Then we have Rahul. Rahul heads marketing at SAP. And like Vamsi and Srihari, Rahul also carries over 20 years of experience and he's been in SAP for a long time. And prior to that, he has also worked in HCL and lots of other experiences in technology space. And of course, in this journey over 20 years, Lots of accolades he has been conferred on. And I know Rahul for some time. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for taking time out and looking forward to learning from your experience.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Perfect. So let's do a quick poll to get just a second. We will now, given we have over 150 people, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the poll to get a sense of the audience we have, right? Just a second. So I have launched this poll. I hope all of you can see a poll in front of you. Depending upon which profile would you best fit in, I would want all of you to choose that so that we know collectively as a kind of audience we have. Okay, perfect. I'll share the results as well. So we have around 15% students or freshers, over 33% sales and marketing professionals. Similarly, over 30%, 32% digital marketing practitioners, close to 15% CXOs or entrepreneurs, and around 9% people from other functional areas so far. 80% of you have already voted. I'll wait for another few seconds, and I would really appreciate if all of you could respond to this poll so that you all know the kind of people you are participating in this session with, right? So let me do a reverse countdown. So it's 3, 2, and the final one. Great. Here are the results. So we have I think digital marketing practitioners and sales and marketing professionals are the largest, followed by students, freshers, or CXOs or entrepreneurs. I think this is a very healthy mixture of the kind of audience we would have wanted for this session. Thank you, everyone, and I hope it makes it relevant for you as well. Perfect. So what we will now do is I will just a second. There is one more poll I want to do to get a sense of the kind of organization you are part of. Some of you who may be students may not be clear about B2B or B2C. Just to clarify, in case there are some people. So B2B stands for business to business. So if your organization serves other business as their clients, that's what we mean by B2B, and B2C is business to consumer or business to customer. So depending upon the organization you are part of, if you could share, that would be great. I'm assuming a large percentage of you should be B2B, but it would be still interesting to know or validate assumption, and would be great if there are people from B2C as well. I'm sure this topic is of a lot of interest. Yeah. So 65% of you voted. We'll wait for another few seconds, and I would again appreciate if you could answer this question. I know some of you are not representing any organization at this point in time, so and we've not given that choice. We should have given, but I'm assuming those who have not voted might be not working right now, right? Great. So 75% have already voted. That's also a great number given this question. So I'll do a reverse countdown again for 3 seconds. It's 3, 2, 1, and go. Perfect. So here are the results. As expected, 50% are only in B2B. 35% represent both B2B and B2C. So 85% of you are in B2B and thus joined this session. Thanks, everyone. That's great. Now, quickly to share with you the agenda. We have introduced each other, welcomed. I'll quickly talk very briefly about digital marketing for B2B, and then we get into a discussion with panelists where I am going to ask few questions to the panelists, and then towards the end we'll have audience Q&A. Right now, there are ways in which B2B and B2C would be similar, but there are a lot of ways in which they are different. And when we are talking of digital marketing for B2B, we are talking of using or leveraging digital marketing for entire journey of until you acquire a customer, and maybe even beyond that. So when you are looking at doing digital marketing for B2B, for example, at Digital Vidya, we serve individuals who want to learn digital marketing, which is B2C for us, but there are a lot of corporate programs we do And when we are, for example, looking at reaching out to organizations who could be interested in doing digital marketing for themselves, looking at hiring people, then for us, that's digital marketing for B2B, right? Now, first part, which becomes even more important in case of B2B, is to how do you plan, right? So, what do you want to accomplish? So, goals represent you want to, like in B2C, there could be a lot of visibility, general branding you may be interested in. But digital for B2B, you would have to be more specific and your objectives could differ a bit, right? Definitely, soul of marketing is to know who your audience is. In case of B2B, you will classify based on their location, industry, profile. You have a product or service, you need to define that because that's what is going to speak on your behalf. What are the different types of content you will create? Then, once the planning is done, you will activate the audience, which means you will look at the channels, approaches to reach out to them, which could include search, social. You may do influencer marketing, employee advocacy, employee amplification. Definitely in B2B, in large services firms like Wipro, there's a big opportunity to leverage existing employee workforce. Uh, Credibility, authority is definitely supreme for anyone to be successful in digital marketing for B2B. So you need to look at how do you continuously create, establish, expand your authority. So what kind of content would you create? Like, it could be videos, could be blog, website could have a lot of other contents to build that. And finally, you need to reach closer to the customer acquisition phase where you will get them interested, engage with you, and get into SQL here, which we mean by sales qualified leads, right? So until that everything could be online, and then especially in case of large deals, which all of the panelists represent, mostly a physical meeting would be needed, series of meetings over a long period, and there also digital marketing plays a role while the conversations are happening. And even once you've got the customer, there's a lot you can do even beyond that, right? So that's the cycle of digital marketing for B2B. And inside of this, we will take a deeper dive so that you could go back with the actionable takeaways for all of you, right? So let's start the discussion. I would want to begin with this fundamental question in terms of how is, and all these questions are in the context of digital marketing for B2B. Vamsi, I would begin with you. Would you share, in your experience, briefly, how is digital marketing for B2B different than digital marketing for B2C?
It's like you said, Pradeep. It's fundamentally different, and since we have a fairly matured and experienced audience with us today in this discussion, right? I would like to play on 2 points where I think the marketing dynamics vary a lot between, or digital marketing dynamics would vary a lot between B2B and B2C. The first is the buyer mindset, right? When I'm doing consumer marketing, when we are doing a B2C, your mindset as a buyer, you're buying for yourself. It can have a fairly evolved decision-making process, like especially if I'm buying a house or a car. These are fairly big decisions that we as individuals make. But it's essentially the dynamics is that I'm thinking of myself as an individual, as a buyer. I'm looking at my individual aspirations and what I like to kind of achieve through that particular buy. And that's the mindset of a consumer who's buying for himself, right? Versus an enterprise buyer who's buying for the organization, and that's a very different dynamic, right? And then B2B marketing needs to understand and respond to that enterprise buyer who's buying for the needs of the organization, and those dynamics are different. That buying process are different. The way the multiple stakeholders can play a role involved in that buying process, those impact the buying cycle. So there are these differences. While the marketing methods or sometimes the channels, there is a lot of commonality, right? The buyer mindset when I'm buying something for my organization is very different when the buyer mindset when I'm buying myself something for my own use, right? And as marketers, we really need to kind of understand that. The other aspect where I think there is a lot of difference is while business to consumer marketing methods are focused a lot on reach and frequency, the business to business marketing methods is a lot about depth. Because obviously in a business to business scenario, your audience is that much more segmented, that much more smaller. So therefore, it's not as much the reach that is the challenge, because that audience is accessible. But what's important is the depth and impact of that conversations, right? And that's where a B2B and B2C would differ. Well, one is focused on reach and frequency, the other is focused on depth and impact. And the last point here I would like to make from a B2B and a B2C perspective, while B2B today is evolving in a digital marketing, or when you're talking about marketing in a digital world rather than digital marketing, right? B2B is all about experiences at every possible touch point. Whereas in a B2C environment, that could be limited to a point of purchase touch point. It's also going beyond there, but that's where I would actually see the differences, Pradeep.
Perfect, Vamsi. Thank you so much. Srihari, would you like to add anything specific, or Rahul?
Yeah, no, I think, no, thanks, Pradeep. And apologies to the audience, first of all. There's a little bit of background noise. So if it's bothering you, hopefully it will die out a little bit soon. One of our neighbors is getting some work done. So sorry about that. But listen, I think Vamsi's framed it very, very well, right? Maybe a slightly different way of calling out some of those areas that Vamsi really touched on. I think one of the pieces he was saying is B2C tends to be probably a more broader reach, is what Vamsi called out. I tend to agree with that. One way to look at that, probably the segmentation is a little bit broader in that sense. When you look at it from a B2C lens, B2B by definition tends to be far more account targeted, very, very specific in that realm, right? That's one. Vamsi also talked about the point around buyer behavior. I do agree with that. Probably a nuance around it is, and again, it's probably a little bit of a generalization, but you hopefully get the drift, is that B2B tends to be probably based more on rational attributes in a lot of the purchasing decisions, right? So that's another nuance that you need to keep in mind. But having said that, increasingly there are areas where they are sort of crossing over each other as well, which I want to touch upon. One is more and more B2B is starting to become self-serve purchases, right? Similar to how you largely think about your e-com experience in a B2C world, right? B2B is also very much moving there, and companies are offering customers the opportunity to self-serve and buy their products and services. Yes, that's one. So an opportunity for B2B to take a leaf out of B2C and sort of figure out how do I sort of market in that kind of world. And what Pradeep showed as end-to-end across those multiple stages, you have the opportunity to play it out in the digital world far more easily. So there's some learning from each other which can happen. The other area which I think is sort of increasingly crossing over is in the world of social, right? So social is playing a space in both B2B and B2C. The same consumer that you are selling to, when they are at a workplace and making a B2B purchase, you're likely touching them through as a customer or a consumer as well, right? And they are having similar social interactions across both the consumer as well as other products. So social is another area where you see some of this crossover happen. Okay, so those are thoughts, Pradeep, but hopefully that adds a little bit into the discussion as well.
Great, Sherry. I think definitely leveraging B2C is a new trend, or going towards that, SaaS-based companies, and we are seeing the trend. Great. Thanks for adding that. Rahul, would you like to add anything to this?
No, I think Vamsi and Srihari pretty much covered everything I could have possibly touched upon. So just to put it in a frame, to summarize it, I think, yeah, like Vamsi said, in B2B, the size of the audience that you typically engage with in a given campaign is a very finite number, right, compared to what you would do in a typical B2C kind of environment. So that fundamentally changes everything, which means sharper targeting, and within that, and he also spoke about depth. And that depth really comes from actually understanding the persona of the potential buyer that you have, and that everything else follows from there, right? Which is not necessarily the case in B2B. And I'm not saying B2C companies typically only do carpet bombing and one size fits all, but clearly this is a lot more kind of a defined framework. Just to give you a sense, SAP has been in India for 25 years, and all of these years we have only about 15,000 customers in the country, right? And if I were to put, let's say, 20 stakeholders that would be meaningful to us in each company, we are talking about a total audience of about 300,000 people that we would have, addressed in the last 25 years, right? So that's a very finite number, and how you approach that market, especially from a digital marketing perspective, is going to be fundamentally different, right? So yeah, and of course, Vamsi also touched upon the longer sales cycles, and the complexity of the buyer journey is a lot higher in the B2B space, and then there are multiple decision makers, right? So which makes it very, very different from a B2C environment.
Perfect, Rahul, and thank you for adding that number to make it real. Great. Let's move forward. The next question I have is, some obvious objectives which digital marketing can help fulfill for B2B also is lead generation, maybe lead nurturing, and moving closer towards the sale. What do you think are other marketing objectives one can consider when they are looking at going after digital marketing for B2B? Rahul, you want to start?
I'm sorry, I thought you were going in a sequence. I didn't hear the question.
Let me reverse this time.
Got it.
Yeah, Rahul,
yes.
So would you like to share?
Yeah, so in fact, when I was thinking of the first question that you asked, right? I mean, I wanted to really start off with the commonality between B2B and B2C. Really, look, fundamentally, the business fundamentals and the principles of marketing do not change, right? Whether you are selling cola or an enterprise software. End of the day, your actions are supposed, you are from your audience, you're looking for a desired outcome, and the final outcome is a share of his wallet. So that fundamentally does not change, right? But in case of B2B, of course, that value realization that a marketer will expect, there is a direct cause-effect relationship that you can establish in a shorter time frame, despite the cycles being longer. But then there are other objectives. Of course, you will see whether it is creating mind share, it is, and probably going to touch upon that later as well, in terms of how you can actually build a brand, ground up, only using digital, for instance, right? So clearly, while pipeline and revenue are, at least that's the way I am measured and my team is measured from any marketing activity, it eventually has to deliver a certain value of pipeline or revenue. But clearly there is a huge opportunity out there to build mind share, create thought leadership for your companies and your brands. Those are some important objectives that digital can definitely fulfill.
Sure. So, and I think we need not have everyone answer all the questions as well, so that we become more effective. And I think definitely, and we'll touch this point, while lead generation and sales is always a key metric, and we are all measured on, but for that to happen effectively, even more in case of B2B, there are a lot of things which needs to happen, right? It's not just running an ad. Unlike in B2C, you have a lead, and then probably, as we shared earlier, impulsive buying for B2C. It has a much longer, complex process involving many more people than an individual who is making a decision for himself or herself. And I think let's move forward to next question, so that we get into the depth of it. Unless there is something very critical, Srihari or Vamsi, you want to add?
And there's one thing I do want to add, Pradeep, on this is, I mean, beyond what Rahul said, right, which is very fair on the pipeline and the typical metrics that any B2B marketer is measured on. I think beyond that, we need to start thinking about, digital is obviously all about scale, the reach, and somebody mentioned the depth, right? So it naturally goes down to the point around insights, right? So I think marketing objectives beyond what is traditional leads, pipe, revenue kind of thing, you also have the opportunity to understand more detailed insights about buyer behavior. So that's one which I think is important that we start getting our heads around.
If I may add, with digital, you get the insights in real time, right? Which is very critical, right?
Correct. That's one, right? We'll figure out what we do with that insights, how we digest it across, later. But that's an opportunity. The other thing which I believe we have a lot of headroom to do more on is, product and service feedback, right? Again, it's out there, but as marketers, again, this may be a generalization, and my apologies for generalizing this, but again, in the general spirit of understanding the drift, you can understand the service feedback as well from your customers, right? So that's another thing we should keep our eyes and ears open for.
Just a couple of points to add to that, what Srihari and Rahul said. Pradeep, I think digital marketing, or I think this, it can help us a lot in being more focused in defining the objectives. It can help us be very sharp. It also renders very nicely to experimenting, learn fast, fail fast kind of a culture, right? It brings that aspect to it. But where I see, I mean, taking on the thought leadership point which Rahul was talking about, I think where digital marketing is incredibly helping today is bringing out the voice of customer very strongly in some of the marketing programs. It's becoming a very powerful channel to actually drive advocacy. Another very important angle to marketers today, right? And digital is really giving the platform to drive advocacy, to engage with communities, to go beyond what you're actually selling, to trying to add value to the community. Again, an incredibly important aspect of marketing, I believe, today, right? I mean, today marketing has gone beyond talking features and benefits. It's marketing has taken, brands are taking very tall stands, right? Yesterday, Bonvita launched a campaign which is all about helping parents not push children to other things which they're not passionate about, right? And even in corporate, even in a B2B world, today it's not about features of products or platforms. Today it's sustainability, it's diversity, it is ESG, it is carbon footprint, right? So there is a lot of taller stands enterprises today are taking. And I think a lot of that is also achievable because the kind of opportunities digital platforms today bring out in profiling organizations.
Sure, Vamsi, I think very well point in terms of what is now possible because of digital in B2B, which otherwise was not. And a lot more things which you wouldn't have even imagined in terms of connecting with your audience, for like what Srihari said, in terms of getting the real-time feedback, doing much more beyond just pushing your products. Great. Let's move forward, and I would combine next two questions about what are the channels and techniques which are most suitable for lead generation in case of B2B, and how can organizations leverage content? Like in case of, say, B2C, in many scenarios where online sales happen, there is not much need of creating content, right? A product itself is sufficient. You could have offers, discounts. But in case of B2B, it's not just about your product, service, or solution. There is a lot more you need to do to build that credibility and reach closer to the customer. So specifically in case of B2B, which are the key channels and specific kind of content which makes sense in the digital buyer's journey in case of B2B? You can share light. Vamsi, you may want to share, begin with.
Yeah, I think obviously content is the bedrock, it's the foundation. I think it's important to, again, going from a last point, we shouldn't as marketers be tempted to lead our content strategy based on what we have or what we are trying to sell. It needs to be a lot more outside in. It needs to be a lot more what it's value to the community, it's value to the industry, it's value to the end user. I think that should define that should define our the content framework. I think a lot of times, a lot of content creation uh, is about features, benefits, solutions, cases. I think there is an opportunity for us to do a much taller stand there. And the thing about content, which I think as the entire marketing community we need to improve is we are not very good at articulating what's the clear call for action from a content asset. Every content asset that you create, you would want certain reaction from the reader, from the audience who's consuming that, right? And that call for action, and especially in the digital world, how do we connect that call for action to further down the funnel, right? And so that you can start and cultivate meaningful relationships. I think that's a very important aspect when we look at content as such. When I'm talking content, I'm actually including both content creation and content marketing. And these are, again, today, as marketers, I feel that we are creating so much without actually putting enough thought on how to actually market that piece of content, right? So so clearly articulating the call for action and connecting that call for action across the funnel, I think those are um, the things, right? It's a super crucial segment in the super crucial part of the B2B mix, the content mix. I think uh, as teams, we need to slow down with the kind of content that we produce and focus more on how can I meaningfully take this to the people for whom I'm actually producing this, right? I think that's the point I have on content.
Sure. Srihari, would you like to add? And also,
No, I think good points, Vamsi, right? And I particularly resonate with, stop trying to create the next piece of content, right? But just rewinding back, right, Pradeep, to what you were asking, what are the best, whatever forms, right? Or what, listen, I think in today's digital world, and obviously our entire discussion today is around digital, right? The most powerful thing of digital which it can provide us is contextual, right? What is the customer doing at this point in time against the backdrop of what got them there, right? So any platform which gives me that contextual insight, that contextual plugin, is probably a great place for the fishing pond, okay? What's an example? Obviously search, right? I mean, it's high on mind. That's a great example of contextual. There are, in the B2B world, and particularly I'm in the tech space, there are favorite fishing ponds where people go look for information, and therefore is very contextual to what is top of mind for them at that time, and it gives you insights about the intent, and that's what I was alluding to earlier as well. So anything which gives you a rock solid information about the context of where the buyer is at that point in time is a wonderful fishing ground for you from a lead gen and a dem gen perspective. Now, from a content perspective, I can't agree with Vamsi more, right? It's obviously a crucial pillar that's given. It's not so much about creating more and more and more content, right? A few things which I'm personally very passionate about, right? It's about being direct and genuine, right? In today's world, right? In the digital world, trying to be indirect or non-genuine will get caught like that, right? If not by one person, there'll be like 50 people who catch it in no time. So be direct, be genuine, and definitely reuse the content. I think that's what Vamsi was talking about, right? Don't go to like creating tons and tons of content. The reason it's important in my mind to be direct and genuine is because, there's plenty of stats out there and you can go look it up. But people have researched a lot before they've come to you, right? They're what? Like, I don't know what stat is, probably 60, 70% in their purchasing cycle before they show up at your doorstep. At that time, they're not looking for additional, it's for lack of a thing, generic marketing content. right? Cut through the chase, come to where their mind is, and therefore, you know, serve up that content. And when you go down that route, probably less is more, right? When you think about that. So anyway, those are the things I just wanted to add to what Vamsi just said here. Pradeep, back to you, please.
Great, Shia. I think definitely that's one area where B2C and B2B differs a lot, and there is a lot of unlearning if you're coming from B2C. You know, especially because the decision is not going to be impulsive. You cannot just influence a person on the spot. So there has to be genuine, has to be thought through. Rather than looking at number of posts across platforms, you have to be looking at what resonates with your audience and stay true to what you stand for. Great. For the paucity of the time, I'll move and not have every question be for everyone. But I think next question, which is very important, what is the role of technology in B2B marketing? Like, what are the different ways technology can be leveraged in the digital marketing journey? Rahul, would you like to share maybe how SAP is using technology for marketing?
Yeah, we sell that technology ourselves as well. So clearly, I'm going to I'm going to say you cannot do it without. I think it lies at the core of digital marketing, right? Whether it is B2B or B2C, and there is a whole lot of technology available today. Whether it is helping you to kind of automate, you know, that entire buyer journey, create micro journeys within those journeys for your customers, being able to track your customer throughout that journey, or your prospect throughout the journey. So there are tons of technologies that are available today, which are driving this thing. And like I said, I mean, there is not much of a difference between whether it is used for a B2B scenario or not. Of course, there are things like B2B commerce, which is another area which works differently from B2C commerce. There is technology available for that. So fundamentally, technology actually lies at the core of this whole practice, right? It is different from running an event, a physical event. So you cannot imagine digital marketing without technology. But I just wanted to make a point before we move there, because this is diametrically opposite to the technology aspect, because I have been a strong proponent of, you know, marketing being part art, part science. And my pet peeve these days is that the new age of marketers actually are you know, forgetting about the art aspect of marketing completely, because, you know, end of the day, whether it is a B2B buying decision or B2C purchase, you know, 95% of our decisions apparently are made in our subconscious mind. So clearly you cannot take emotion out of the communication, irrespective of whether it is digital or phygital or physical. So, you know, that art of storytelling, and Vamsi, like you mentioned, the what was that? Was it Horlicks or with
Bonvita, Catherine's.
Bonvita, right? I mean,
Yeah.
end of the day, storytelling, right? You're trying to, you know, pick at a certain emotion. Of course, that's in a B2C scenario, but it works exactly the same, in my opinion, even when you're dealing in. Of course, there is a whole lot of logic, there is a lot of research, but when it comes to the crunch, you will realize that the decision making eventually is based on some kind of an emotional aspect, which actually differentiates you. And something that I call the sea of sameness, right? Because especially B2B, everything is so commoditized. There is very little difference between what you have to offer and what the other guy has to offer, and that's where that emotional differentiation is really important, irrespective of whether it is digital or, you know, whatever route to market that you may be taking.
Great, Rahul. While you sell that, but you talk mostly of the not part of that. That's interesting. But yeah, marketing automates the whole area.
The problem is everybody says that, right? So how do you differentiate yourself, right? Especially Sri Hari would say, right? He would not agree that a server is a server, or an IT services provider is an IT service provider. So, you know, of course, there are a whole lot of logical considerations, but eventually you would realize, and even in your choices that you make, choosing a vendor for your digital marketing or a social media agency, you will do the RFPs, do everything. Sorry, I'm completely taking it away from your digital marketing discussion, but this is important because people forget that aspect when they're building a campaign and focus only on the medium, which is not the right way to do it.
Srihari, would you like to add a specific role
No,
of
listen, I
technology?
think and again, maybe while Rahul, veered towards the art part of it, which is fair, which is completely justifiable, right, from the lens he's looking at. But to your point, I think, listen, I mean, tech today touches every function, right? You go to any function within your company, HR, whatever, sales, so on and so forth. I mean, digital transformation for the entire CEO's office, etc. Tech touches every function. Marketing can't be far behind. Marketing was never behind. And for many years, like Pradeep, you said at the start of your talk, 20 years ago, you started the whole digital piece as a foundation for your company, right? So tech is absolutely critical. Now, there are a few areas in my mind where it is starting to really push the envelope, right? You touched the word automation, Pradeep. I think that's important that people who are listening over here, especially if you're like an entrepreneur, digital practitioner, or a sales and marketing pro, think about automation, right? Because a lot of things in digital, the backbone is scale, right? So if you can get whatever your campaign, your thinking, etc., to be able to reach at scale, automation is absolutely critical and important. Within that realm, be sensitive to what Rahul was saying, right? We love to think we can do personalized, etc., but listen, don't make it non-genuine or non-personal in that sense, right? So that's one. The other is start thinking about the importance of what, I know it's a buzzword, but what AI can do for you. AI is playing a very, very critical role in, again, your ability to scale to reach hundreds and thousands of customers. Okay, so both of these dimensions I would just call out as key pillars or key fabric areas. The rest of it, there's plenty of digital. The MarTech stack is probably more complicated than, I don't know, whatever else that you might have seen, right? But it's got plenty and plenty and plenty of vendors. But probably these are a couple of areas which should be high on your radar. Pradeep,
just to add one point there to what Srihari said, and for the benefit of the audience, to break this problem or the challenge of technology or the MarTech stack, which Srihari said, right? I would recommend breaking this into 3 layers, right? Your foundational layer for any marketing organization, any CMO, the foundational layer of a marketing stack is about your overall customer database or the enterprise, the CRM part of it. That should be the foundational layer. Then there is a layer which is focused on the kind of experiences and personalization that you would create. So your UX and your personalization, your apps, that aspect. And then the final layer is about, or the third layer is about how you can actually drive your marketing and advertising initiatives on digital, which is where your search engine optimization, your search engine advertising, your email automation and email campaigns. So break this whole world, complicated as Srihari said, into these foundational layer and experience layer and an outreach layer where you look at reaching out to the target audience. That's the input I would want to give to the audience here.
Great, Vamsi, and thanks for simplifying. And now I would like to connect the questions which audience is asking to our next question, and hopefully that would be of a lot of interest for others. And Vamsi, I would ask you, definitely for small and medium B2B players, lead generation is one of the key objectives, and they are challenged, and digital is definitely one of the great opportunities. And within that, one area which a lot of companies, including SaaS companies, are very actively leveraging is account-based marketing, specifically through LinkedIn, to reach out to specific accounts. And a significant part of this entire process can be automated for lead generation. But not many people are aware or don't know what all does it involve, what are the different tools which could be used. And so Vamsi, and that's one area which you're comfortable, and I'm sure all of you us have been doing that. So would you throw a light on specifics of account-based marketing using LinkedIn for lead generation?
LinkedIn is actually, I would say, the most powerful platform from a enterprise to access enterprise buyers, right? All of them are on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn gives you the precision that you would require, right? You can choose an organization, you can choose designations rather than other than the name of the individual that you want to kind of really target. You can perhaps do everything else: region, geography, designation, everything can be done through LinkedIn. And that also there is a sales navigator tool today in LinkedIn which helps us even access people who are not directly part of your network. So to that extent, there is a it's a very powerful platform. But Pradeep, to me, that is just one part of the answer, which is how do we, that is access to an audience, that today a platform like LinkedIn brings you that. I think the challenge today for a marketer from an account-based marketing perspective is how do we then really customize my messaging which is specific to the needs of that particular account. And that's where a lot of thinking needs to come in, because we take what we put at the top of the funnel from a content perspective and apply it to an account, it may not work. It will not work actually. So the challenge to me from an account-based marketing perspective is not as much my how do I reach to the key stakeholders in the account, but how do I research so that my value proposition can be as compelling and as specific to an account, right? And that's where, as marketers, and I would request since the question is from since there are many people from mid-sized companies here, I think I would invest a lot of time in researching that, right? It could be a old style research, but still immensely valuable, because today you have technology to reach, but the value proposition and the story to reach is something which is still very old style in my way. We need to be very clear in terms of how your proposition is resonating with the audience there.
Great. So, since there are a couple of questions which are connected around this in terms of in B2B, there is not a single decision maker. There are buyers, there are users, there are influencers. How to create content around that. And to just add on to that, probably that would connect all of this and answer questions some of the people have asked, including Shuchita. She asked, we have a service, we don't have a technology to sell, what should we be doing? So to all of you, as Vamsi shared, LinkedIn is definitely one platform where you can qualify to the level of location, geography, company, and individual profile. And within that also, you need to define different your target audience. Like that's not just a customer. So it could be a buyer who is making the decision. It could be influencer who is influencing the decision within the organization, and the users who are going to use it. So you need to define all of that, and then LinkedIn can give you access in terms of who they are, which otherwise probably you would need to do a lot of hard work. Then in terms of, as we said earlier, Rahul Shriyari mentioned in terms of, and Vamsi paid importance on looking at what is the content or messaging which is relevant for each one of them. You cannot just have a content which you will send to everyone, right? So your influencer could require a different kind of content versus the final user and versus the buyer. So you may have a CFO, CEO, and CIO all playing a role in a large service you are selling. So you need to define messaging and content accordingly. The good part is identifying this, reaching out to them, having this content be circulated. There are tools which allow you to do, and many of you might not be aware, significant percentage of mails which you receive today are automated. Depending upon whether you open your mail, take an action or not, the next mail comes, and that is also automated. So the whole email marketing automation, there are very, very simple to very, very complex tools and solutions around that. So all of you who are in at a small, and that's done by large organizations as well, but definitely for new organizations, smaller organizations, when you are limited by budget, you need to look into doing that hard work of defining your audience, making sure that you're not just going after tons of content, having a very, very relevant content, and then using tools which you can afford, which are relevant for your organization. And of course, you will need to keep measuring, but definitely this can and has given a large number of companies a scale which they cannot otherwise imagine outside of this. So I hope for all of you who are looking at lead generation with limited budget, with a defined audience. This answers your question about the targeting, content, right? Then there are questions about, say, if audience is not very tech savvy, right? Say someone said that I'm a brass manufacturer, right? Other could be a trader. There are questions. How do they decide which platform to go after? Like, they know who their audience is, but it's not very obvious that, their audience is on a platform, or how can they search? Okay, now this is my audience. So far, I have never considered digital, and now I want to go after them using digital. What should be the starting point? Srihari, would you share if that is a question?
Yeah, sure. So listen, I think, and I guess the start point is what I mentioned a little while ago, right? Contextual, right? Where are your buyers online, right? Now there are different ways. I mean, there are more sophisticated ways in which you can find that out. But before you go there, there's probably simpler ways and more intuitive ways that you can find out where your buyers are. Okay, and then in the middle somewhere is things like search, which is obviously as it's happening, you get a dipstick of it, right? So the first thing I'd certainly look is contextual. Where are my buyers? What are they? Where are they spending their time on, and what are they looking for? So that's one part of the puzzle you need to understand. And in the context of that, know to what Vamsi said, what kind of content to serve up for the first time, for the second time, for the third time, etc., right? And keeping a sense of that touch and retouch. What do I need to present to them if they're coming on to my website for the first time, and then or a subsequent user, and so on, right? And then you can get more sophisticated to it. So those are a couple of quick things to sort of keep in mind. Obviously, if you're starting to spend money, right, and then say, hey, I now want to spend money and get after, then you can use more sophisticated filters and mechanisms. Once he talked about on one platform, what are those filters available for you to target certain audiences? Pretty much variety of other platforms which offers communities, right? Which offers communities, you can have those sophisticated ways to filter that out and serve up that content. So the spectrum varies. If you are looking at a minimal to no budget, then obviously you need to have a sense of contextually where are they likely to be, and therefore what do I need to serve. And then as you move along the spectrum, in more sophisticated ways, there are existing communities, existing places which is a good water holes. How do you filter there and then serve up content? Somewhere in the middle is things like search, which clearly is it's more like a mechanism where they're in the market for certain solutions or products or whatever, and therefore you are able to serve up your content. Right now, within that, there are variations to it across SEO, SEM, etc. But there are ways in which you can serve. Okay.
Sure. So definitely, I think one thing all of you need to do is, whichever platform you want to go after, search and see some indicators. Like one platform which is a platform which is not very well leveraged and now increasingly becoming is, say, Quora. We ourselves have used Quora very, very actively. It has played a significant role in customer acquisition, lead generation, branding for us. So if, for example, you've heard of Quora and you want to know, is Quora relevant for me? Go on Quora, search for relevant questions or keywords related to your product and service, then look at the answers which are there, or questions which are there, though it's focused largely on answers, and look at the kind of involvement, the kind of answers there are, the kind of views those answers have. That will tell you clearly, is Quora relevant for you or not. Likewise, if you want to consider YouTube, go to YouTube, search for those keywords, look at the kind of videos a competitor might have done, an influencer might have done, and see the views it has. So that is what you need to do. If you are not clear of the platform you want to go after, go search, look at the kind of engagement reach that platform is giving to a similar audience and similar service or a vendor, and that would probably help you answer that. Now, some of you have asked the question in terms of how do we do digital marketing, like in terms of should we build a team in-house, Should we outsource it? Now, before I talk about that, now there is very interesting and relevant piece of information I have for all of you is 2 weeks later, we are doing a panel discussion exactly on that: digital marketing in-house versus outsourcing. So we are normally doing 2 panel discussions every month, and this is the next one we have already chosen. So for all of you who have asked this question, definitely this is discussions wholly targeted at that, in terms of what are the pros and cons of outsourcing versus doing in-house. And for all of you who are interested, you can just say yes, and what we will do is we have your details. We'll take care of registering you and signing up for that, right? So I'm keeping this poll for a few seconds now. Moving forward, one of the areas I want to ask all of you, like for example, Quora, or maybe account-based marketing. So there could be platforms, there could be techniques which are not commonly known, right? Or in other words, a lot of people use growth hacks. Would you want to share, would you know of some examples, case studies where something unique, unknown has been done in the case of B2B for fulfilling any marketing objective? So all of you, if you have something very specific you want to share, which could give a completely new perspective and open minds of audience to look at digital marketing for B2B in a completely different light. And any one of you can share. Maybe your own examples you have done yourself or your organization, maybe for your clients.
I can start off here, Pradeep, very quickly. I think if I can, leaning back onto the earlier question, if the audience is not accessible or easily available in one platform, it as an organization or as marketers, it also I think we should see that as an opportunity to build that platform, as an opportunity to take the leadership in creating that group, so that we are able to engage and build a relationship with that group, right? So I would like to look at from that perspective, and that is where, leaning to the question in terms of the growth hack, right? Community marketing is a big growth hack today. Today, if I need to sell Google Cloud, for example, right? It's not enough if I just talk to the enterprise buyers. I need to be as much be associated with the community that is into Google Cloud, the developers. So I would want to put across the simple idea that invest in the communities that would help you amplify what you're trying to eventually drive, right? So that to me is the fastest way, because it boils down to building a very strong grounds of credibility.
Great, Vamsi. I think definitely, even in the context of B2B, your community, which includes influencers and a lot of other stakeholders, if you can engage with them, definitely digital gives you that platform. It could create something which is very long lasting and give you much larger scale, which otherwise you may not even imagine. Great. Rahul or Srihari, you want to share anything, any example?
Yeah, I can talk from SAP's perspective, right, where because of the sheer width of the portfolio that we take to the market, our audiences and the stakeholders that we deal with are very different from each other, right? If you're selling ERP, of course, the CIO is the contact, the buying contact mostly in most organizations. But if you look at our HR or talent management solution, there'll be a CHRO, which is fundamentally a different kind of buying center compared to a CIO. Or procurement is again a completely different area, right? While there will be some common stakeholders, but largely the business case for that specific solution will start with that, the LOB leader in that organization, right? Which basically means we are dealing with like 10 different kinds of personas for 10 different kinds of solutions. And I agree with Vamsi. I think community, and we kind of built or trying to build a couple of communities, especially in the mid-market space. We have a fairly large community of business owners, which is obviously cross-industry, about 50,000 of those entrepreneurs engage on that platform. So that again, if there is nothing that exists, and especially there was this question around, what if they have no digital presence at all? Well, if that's the case, then that's the basic condition of the other guy being not being a digital castaway, right? I mean, you need to have some presence somewhere, but if you cannot specifically find a platform, it's a great opportunity to build a community if there is a sizable opportunity there. And then the other point I wanted to make was there are obviously custom publishers, for instance, right? And especially in the line of businesses that I mentioned, like HR, there are certain publishers who exist who have reasonable traction in some of these audience areas. Go there. There are other vendors that we work with who do some IP based targeting, right? Which could help some of these opportunities. Yeah, so largely that. But I thought building communities or becoming part of one is a great idea.
Great, Rahul. Yeah, I think you touched upon IP-based marketing. So again, a lot of people may not be aware there are tools which allow you to, identify or reach out to based on IP. So earlier, like a lot of people had questions about, on my side, what kind of visitors have come, right? You cannot get a personal details, but you can get to know that at any point in time or in a specified duration, like these geographies, these specific companies, people visited. So there are lots of direct indicators which help you identify and help you shorten and improve your conversion chances if you use some of those tools and platforms. Great. Srihari, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think good discussion, right? I think communities, I would agree. That's a good way. Just one caveat I would put on that is, remember, community, even if you bring it to a certain size, it needs a lot of nurturing, right? It needs constant content, engagement, etc. Not to dissuade or anything, but I'm just telling you the reality of keeping something alive once you get it up, okay? So that's the asterisk next to communities that you need to be aware of. I would call out a couple of things, especially in the world that we're living in today, which is, how do you leverage hybrid worlds, right? So you're at an event, you're there at a physical presence. How do you use digital to amplify your presence? So think about that actively is one thing I would encourage all of you, right? So you might choose, or maybe you're at a, I don't know, whatever, a really small event, let's say, as an example, right? But you have the opportunity in the world today and audiences. I mean, this is a classic example, right? We're reaching whatever 150 people that Pradeep said at the start, which is we could have been in a physical conference room with a small audience, but then beaming to a lot of people. So keep hybrid world very much front and center in your mind when you're talking about the reach of your content, right? No longer is just one single physical room. That's, I think, a great avenue to increase your footprint. And by the way, some of those platforms that Pradeep talked about earlier have avenues to play out a LinkedIn Live or whatever else, etc., to amplify those audiences. So keep those very much front and center. Second thing that I would say is, you had a question around, hey, I have brass product, I have this other product, etc. Now, we've dabbled with this, done a little bit, but keep your mind open to it. But the ability to use AR, VR to give your users a nice sense of what your product is about, right? I'm not a super expert in this, but I do feel in the world today and what digital offers to us to be in front of the customer, for you to be able to think about, obviously within the envelope, what you can afford and put in all of that as well, is like, hey, how do I get my customers to get a closer feel for the products that I have and them to appreciate it better? So can I use a little bit of AR, VR to give them either 360 view or whatever, I don't know, the different aspects of the product that you're selling and a feel for it, right? I would keep these two very high on the radar. I think hybrid is a no-brainer, right? But don't overlook that. Yeah, Pradeep, back to you.
Perfect, Srihari. I think, yeah, definitely don't underestimate the effort of creating and keeping the community alive is very, very critical aspect, which Sherry mentioned. And integrating digital with offline is you should not look at digital versus physical. So I think definitely it makes a lot of sense. And it's not just about reach, right? Digital can be used in your product. How do you display your product? Because your audience is now far more digital savvy. A lot of other businesses which otherwise had no option to showcase in physical world can display a lot of that in a very, very interesting way using AI and other VR technologies to be able to, almost give you that experience. And like as Srihari said, the effort otherwise it would have taken for all of us to have this kind of session in a physical world far, far, far more high. We couldn't have the opportunity to get, Vamsi, Rahul, Srihari for a session like this in a physical place where all of you would have come and people from outside India. I think that's a brilliant opportunity, right? Now, I think we have already extended the time. I'll have one more question, final question before we wrap up. And before we do that, or while I'm doing that, I'm just leaving this poll for us to know your experience of today's session. And I would really, really appreciate if all of you would share your genuine feedback on this. While you're doing that, one final question about opportunity of...
Forgot to mention, polls are a great digital marketing tool as well. Okay, just
Sure. Yeah, I think you integrate polls while having, which are physically, not so possible. Sure. Thank you for pointing that out. And we are experiencing, all of this while we are talking about it. Great. So one final question about, as a couple of people have asked, is the role of SEO, organic reach through content, and specifically through search engines in case of B2B. While a lot of consumer companies use SEO very, very extensively, they are very clear about it. For B2B companies, where normally, creating content is always a challenge, scaling content is a challenge, and when content is the meat for SEO, what do you think is an opportunity of SEO for digital marketing in case of B2B? That's my last question, and I really want to thank everyone staying so long. We had over 200 people who were part of this session, and still significant part of them are alive here. And thank you to all of you for extending the time. Yeah, this is the last question to all of you.
So I can again start, Pradeep. Massively important role. I think any content asset that as marketers we create, I think we should keep the SEO in mind. What I mean by that is to keep the trending keywords in mind, to put the right optimization methods behind that article. Today, again, from a user perspective, very rarely a user actually directly gets into a company's website to review its offering. User normally types the pain point on Google, right? And in a B2B environment, and especially in an environment that I belong, it could be cost optimization in cloud could be a user word that he puts it on Google, or improving security posture could be a keyword that he would put on Google. And there are methods in the digital world to find out the most trending keywords in across various subjects. Align your content approach to those keywords to make sure that you are there in the most organic way when such words are searched by the users. It's all about being very tuned into the biggest issues that your audience is facing today. I think aligning content with that would automatically take care of how optimized it is from an SEO perspective.
Great. Srihari, would you like to share?
I want to add one thing. I think, listen, I can't agree more with Vamsi, right? I mean, it is your what shall I say, baseline of sorts, right? In many ways, and it's almost no frills, no additional spend, right? Except, of course, the content creation piece. One thing I would say, given the kind of audience, right, to make SEO happen, key fabric is discipline. Okay. Because you need to, obviously have that critical amount of content out there such that for those specific keywords or whatever, you start bubbling up organically, right? And there might be studies, etc., which shows the difference between an SEM and an SEO kind of a search and where people will gravitate to, right? So therefore, there's a lot of merit to be visible inherently through SEO. But for you to come there, key fabric, discipline, right? Many years ago, probably more than a decade ago, as part of a startup, give you an example, right? At that time, we would create content which we would put up on our blog. We were in the virtualization space at that time. And, it probably sounds weird, but discipline was one blog every day, right? You have to put up some sort of content, and a product marketer, right? I mean, I was a product marketer at that time. It was almost like a mantra for every day. And there is small nuggets that you can put up. But if you do that for 150, 200 days, that will, I don't know what it's called, but more exponentially start paying off for you in the time when those conversations are happening and you'll be visible, right? So invest that time if you're subscribing to it. So it's not necessarily a dollar investment, but it is an effort investment which you need to think about. Yeah.
Perfect. Very well said, Srihari. Rahul, would you like to add on the importance of SEO for B2B?
No, absolutely. I mean, no question. It is extremely important. And just a quick data point, almost, I think it is in the high 90s, okay? Say 95% of all B2B buying actually starts with a Google search. So no denying that SEO is absolutely critical. And in addition to what Srihari mentioned, yes, discipline, of course, and something called agility, right? Being able to change things. And again, my experience, I worked briefly for a startup. Unfortunately, we don't see that agility in larger companies where you would do A, B, C, and D testing every day and just make sure you're putting your money where it actually, brings something back, right? So that level of agility is extremely critical for SEO. So yeah, aside from discipline, agility.
Perfect, Rahul. Yeah, I think especially for small organizations, you have more flexibility in terms of changing, experimenting compared to large organizations. So at the same time, as Srihari said, you have to be disciplined and need to have a long-term view. SEO is not going to give you results over days, most likely not even weeks, at least few months, if not years. You should at least aim for, but you don't have a choice but to use leverage to your advantage. Great. We have extended. Apologies for that. And I know there are still a few questions we could not pick. Sorry about that. But I really, really want to thank you, first, the audience, for staying so long and showing up in such large numbers for a topic which is so centric to B2B, which I initially thought would have a much smaller audience. And hats off to you, all of you, and panelists, Vamsi, Srihari, Rahul. I think without digital, we couldn't have afforded to get all of you on Friday afternoon at one place, talking so much from, so many years of experience. I'm going back with a lot of takeaways for myself. Thanks a ton. We hope to have far more learnings and insights from you, and to our audience, definitely looking forward to seeing, as 86% of you said, to our next panel in the in-house versus outsourcing. And we've already, I can see, 92% people said it was good to excellent. So I think it has been a valuable session. Thanks a ton, everyone. Have a great day and a nice weekend ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, guys.